Yes, sir. Marcus
Look,
Reynolds.
I'm the groom today. My ceremony starts in 40 minutes. I'm just trying to get there.
Wedding, huh? You expect me to believe that? Folks flash fake IDs all the time.
You see the boutonniere, the ring?
You don't even sound like you're from here.
On June 15, 2025, at 10:47 a.m., ICE agent Derek Fontaine made the worst decision of his life when he saw a young black man driving through one of Atlanta's wealthiest neighborhoods and decided he had to be an illegal immigrant. Fontaine pulled him over, dragged him out of his car, slammed him onto the asphalt, and started processing him for deportation while ignoring every piece of identification the terrified man tried to show him. What Fontaine didn't know was that the man he was brutalizing was racing to his own wedding, that his bride's father was Senator Richard Castellano, chief of staff to the president, and that within 2 hours, Fontaine's badge, his career, and his freedom would all be gone. The morning had started perfectly for Marcus Hayes. He'd woken up at 6:30 in his apartment on West Peachtree Street, too excited to sleep any longer. Today was the day. After 3 years of dating, he was finally marrying Isabella Castellano, the woman who'd changed his entire life. Marcus was 32 years old, a corporate attorney at Henderson and Brooks, one of the top law firms in Atlanta. He'd worked his way through Howard University on scholarships, graduated top of his class from Columbia Law, and built a career defending companies in high-stakes litigation. He was good at his job, respected by his colleagues, and today he was marrying the love of his life at the Historic Academy of Medicine on Peachtree Road. He'd laid out his tuxedo the night before, but this morning he wore a tailored charcoal suit for the drive to the venue. The actual ceremony wasn't until noon, but he needed to be there by 11:15 for photos. His best man, Tony, had texted him 4 times already, making sure he wasn't going to be late. Marcus smiled at his reflection in the mirror, adjusted his tie one more time, and grabbed his keys. His car was a black BMW 540i, a gift to himself after making partner at the firm. He'd parked it in the secured garage beneath his building, and as he slid into the driver's seat, his phone buzzed with a text from Isabella. "Can't wait to see you at the altar. I love you." He grinned like an idiot and texted back 3 heart emojis before pulling out onto the street. The route from his apartment to the venue was simple. West Peachtree to Peachtree Road, straight through Buckhead, maybe 20 minutes in light Saturday traffic. He had plenty of time. The sky was clear, the temperature already climbing toward 80 degrees. Marcus turned on the radio and let himself relax for the first time in weeks. All the planning, all the stress, all the family drama, it was all about to pay off. In 2 hours, he'd be married. He was passing through the heart of Buckhead, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Atlanta, when he saw the flashing lights in his rearview mirror. Marcus frowned and checked his speedometer. He was going 34 in a 35 zone. He hadn't run any lights. His registration was current, his insurance valid. He glanced in the mirror again and saw the white SUV with Homeland Security Investigations printed on the side. ICE. His stomach tightened, but he told himself it was probably nothing. Maybe they needed to get around him for an emergency. He put on his signal and started to pull over to let them pass. They pulled over behind him. Marcus felt his heart rate pick up. He put the car in park, kept his hands visible on the steering wheel, and waited. In the mirror, he watched a man get out of the ICE vehicle. White guy, maybe mid-40s, buzz cut, wraparound sunglasses, tactical vest over a black uniform. The man walked toward Marcus's car with the kind of swagger that said he enjoyed this part of his job. Marcus rolled down his window as the agent approached. "License and registration," the agent said. No greeting, no explanation for the stop. "Of course," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm and polite. "Can I ask why you pulled me over, officer?" "Agent," the man corrected sharply. "Agent Fontaine, license and registration. Now." Marcus slowly reached for his wallet in the center console, moving carefully so there was no confusion about what he was doing. He pulled out his Georgia driver's license and handed it over, along with his registration, from the glove box. Agent Fontaine took them without looking at Marcus's face. He studied the license for a long moment, then looked at Marcus, then back at the license. "This you?" Fontaine asked. "Yes, sir." "You sure about that?" Marcus blinked. "I'm sorry?" "I asked if you're sure this is you," Fontaine repeated, his voice harder now. "Because this looks fake to me." It's not fake, Marcus said carefully. That's my valid Georgia driver's license. My name is Marcus Hayes. I'm an attorney at Henderson and Brooks, downtown. Fontaine smirked. An attorney. Right. And I'm the King of England. He leaned down closer to the window. Step out of the car. Can you please tell me what this is about? Marcus asked. I wasn't speeding. I didn't run any lights. I don't understand why. I said get out of the car, Fontaine shouted, his hand moving to his belt. Marcus's hands went up immediately. Okay, I'm getting out. He opened the door slowly and stepped onto the asphalt. He was careful to keep his hands visible, his movements slow and non-threatening. Fontaine grabbed him by the shoulder and spun him around, slamming him face first against the side of the BMW. The impact knocked the air out of Marcus's lungs. His cheek pressed against the hot metal of the car. Hands behind your back, Fontaine ordered. What did I do? Marcus gasped. I didn't do anything wrong. Shut up! Fontaine yanked Marcus's arms behind him and slapped handcuffs on his wrists, tightening them until they bit into his skin. You're being detained for suspected immigration violations. Marcus's mind went blank for a second. Immigration violations? I'm a U.S. citizen. I was born in Philadelphia. I showed you my driver's license. Yeah, a fake one, Fontaine said. He pushed Marcus toward the back of the BMW and made him stand there while he went back to the ICE vehicle. He returned with a tablet and started tapping on it. What's your real name? Marcus Anthony Hayes. I just told you that. Where are you really from? Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm American. I'm a citizen. Fontaine looked up from the tablet, his expression filled with contempt. Right. So what are you doing driving a $70,000 car through Buckhead? Marcus stared at him. I bought it. I'm a partner at a law firm. This is insane. I need to make a phone call. You don't get a phone call, Fontaine said. Not until we verify your status. My status is American. Marcus's voice rose despite himself. He forced himself to breathe, to stay calm. Losing his temper would only make this worse. Please, I'm supposed to be at my wedding in an hour. Just call the number on my driver's license. Call my office. Call anyone. They'll verify who I am. Fontaine laughed. It was a mean, ugly sound. Your wedding, that's a good one. He stepped closer, invading Marcus's space. Let me tell you what I think. I think you're illegal. I think you stole that car. I think that license is fake. And I think you're about to spend the next 6 months in a detention facility before you get deported back to whatever country you're really from. Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. He looked around. They were on a busy street. Cars were slowing down as they passed, drivers staring. A few people had their phones out, recording. Please, Marcus said, hating how desperate he sounded. Please just let me call someone. My fiance's father can verify everything. Just one phone call. Oh, now you've got a fiancé, Fontaine mocked. What's next? You going to tell me you're related to the president? Marcus swallowed hard. He didn't want to play this card. Didn't want to sound like he was name-dropping, but he was running out of options. Her father is Senator Richard Castellano. He's the White House Chief of Staff. Please just call and verify. That's all I'm asking. Fontaine stared at him for a long moment. Then he burst out laughing. The Chief of Staff. You hear that? He looked around like he was talking to an audience. This illegal thinks he's marrying into the White House. He grabbed Marcus by the back of the neck and started walking him toward the ICE vehicle. Come on, buddy. Let's go for a ride. No, wait. Marcus tried to plant his feet, but Fontaine was stronger, and he had leverage. You're making a mistake. Just verify it. One phone call. Fontaine shoved him hard against the side of the SUV. Marcus's shoulder hit the metal, and pain shot down his arm. The only mistake here is you thinking you could lie to a federal agent, Fontaine growled. Marcus's phone was still in his car. His wedding was starting in 53 minutes, and nobody knew where he was. Before we go further, what city or country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. We love seeing where you're tuning in from. If you believe that no one should be racially profiled, no matter who they are, then hit the like and subscribe button. Agent Fontaine dragged Marcus to the back of the ICE vehicle and opened the rear door. Marcus could see inside. the metal bench seats, the partitions separating the back from the front, the smell of industrial cleaner and sweat. This was real. This was actually happening. He was about to be put in the back of a federal vehicle on his wedding day because a racist agent decided he looked illegal. "Get in," Fontaine ordered, his hand still gripping the back of Marcus's neck. "I'm not getting in there," Marcus said, his voice shaking but firm. "You have no legal basis to detain me. I showed you my identification. I answered your questions. You're violating my rights." Fontaine's face went red. "Oh, so now you're a lawyer?" "I told you I'm a lawyer," Marcus said. "I work at Henderson and Brooks. You can call them right now and verify it. My boss is Samuel Henderson. His number is—" "I don't care about your fake job at your fake law firm," Fontaine interrupted. He pulled out his phone and opened the camera. "Turn around." "Why?" "Because I'm documenting this arrest. Turn around." Marcus turned, his hands still cuffed behind his back. Fontaine took several photos of him, then walked around to photograph the BMW from different angles. "Nice car for an illegal," Fontaine said as he snapped pictures. "I'm betting this comes back stolen. Probably took it from some parking lot downtown." "I have the title," Marcus said desperately. "It's in my glove box. The registration matches my name. Everything matches." Fontaine ignored him and made a call on his radio. "This is Fontaine. I need a tow truck to Peachtree Road near East Paces Ferry. I've got a suspected stolen vehicle and a subject in custody for immigration violations." Marcus felt his stomach drop. They were going to tow his car. They were going to take him somewhere. And nobody knew where he was. He thought about Isabella at the venue, probably getting her hair and makeup done, excited and nervous, checking the time. He thought about her father, Senator Castellano, who'd flown in from Washington 2 days ago and had spent last night giving Marcus fatherly advice over expensive whiskey. He thought about his mother, who traveled from Philadelphia and was probably already at the venue in her new dress. "Please listen to me," Marcus said, forcing himself to stay calm. "My wedding starts at noon. It's at the Historic Academy of Medicine. There are going to be 200 people there. My fiancée is Isabella Castellano. Her father is Senator Richard Castellano. You can Google him right now. You can call the venue and verify. Please." Fontaine walked back over, putting his phone in his pocket. "You know what I think? I think you saw some rich white girl, decided you wanted that life, and now you're spinning this whole story to talk your way out of trouble." He leaned in close, his breath hot on Marcus's face. "But I've been doing this job for 17 years, and I can spot a liar from a mile away. You're illegal. You don't belong here. And in a few hours, you're going to be sitting in a cell waiting for deportation." "I was born in Philadelphia," Marcus shouted, his composure finally breaking. "I went to Howard University. I went to Columbia Law. I pay taxes. I vote. I'm as American as you are." "Don't you raise your voice at me," Fontaine snarled. He grabbed Marcus by the front of his suit jacket and slammed him back against the vehicle again. Marcus's head snapped back and hit the metal. Stars exploded in his vision. A car honked as it passed. Someone yelled out their window, "Leave him alone!" Fontaine glanced at the growing number of phones pointed in their direction, but he didn't seem concerned. He had a badge. He had authority. As far as he was concerned, he could do whatever he wanted. "You're bleeding," Fontaine said, almost amused. He touched Marcus's forehead, and his finger came away red. "Must have bumped your head." Marcus could feel the warm trickle of blood running down his temple. His vision was still blurry from the impact. He tasted copper in his mouth where he'd bitten his tongue. "I need medical attention," Marcus said. "You'll get it at the facility," Fontaine replied. He opened the back door of the vehicle again. "Now get in, or I'm going to make you get in. And trust me, you don't want that." Marcus looked at the open door, then at Fontaine, then at his BMW sitting behind them with the driver's door still open. His phone was in there. His whole life was in there. And in 37 minutes, he was supposed to be standing at an altar. "I'm not resisting," Marcus said quietly, "but I'm telling you right now, you're making the biggest mistake of your life." Fontaine smirked. "Get in the vehicle." That's when Marcus heard the sound of multiple engines approaching fast. He turned his head and saw 3 black SUVs racing down Peachtree Road, their lights flashing but no sirens. They weren't police vehicles. They were unmarked, the kind federal agents used, the kind that belonged to Secret Service. Fontaine heard them too. He turned, his hand instinctively going to his weapon. The SUVs screeched to a halt, forming a semicircle around the ICE vehicle and Marcus's BMW. Doors flew open and men and women in dark suits poured out, all of them wearing earpieces, all of them moving with the precision of trained security personnel. And from the middle vehicle stepped a man Marcus recognized immediately. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a perfectly tailored suit. Senator Richard Castellano, his future father-in-law, the White House Chief of Staff. Fontaine's face went pale. Senator Richard Castellano walked toward them like a man who owned the ground he stepped on. Behind him, 8 Secret Service agents fanned out, their hands near their weapons, their eyes scanning everything. 2 more vehicles pulled up, one with FBI printed on the side, the other unmarked but clearly law enforcement. Agents spilled out, all of them focused on the scene in front of them. Fontaine's hand dropped from his weapon. He straightened up, trying to pull himself together, but his face had gone from pale to gray. He just realized something was very wrong. "Release him," Senator Castellano said. His voice was quiet, but it carried absolute authority. He wasn't asking. He was giving an order. Fontaine's mouth opened and closed. "Sir, I don't know who you are, but this is a federal immigration enforcement action, and you need to—" "I know exactly what this is," Castellano cut him off. "This is a racist federal agent racially profiling my daughter's fiancé on his wedding day. Now take the handcuffs off him before I have these FBI agents arrest you for civil rights violations." The word fiancé hit Fontaine like a physical blow. His eyes went wide. He looked at Marcus, then at the senator, then back at Marcus. "Your daughters? Take the cuffs off. Now!" Fontaine fumbled for his keys, his hands shaking as he unlocked the handcuffs. They fell away from Marcus's wrists, leaving deep red marks in his skin. Marcus stumbled forward and Senator Castellano caught him by the shoulders, steadying him. "Are you all right?" Castellano asked, his voice softer now. He saw the blood on Marcus's forehead and his jaw tightened. "Did he do that to you?" Marcus nodded, unable to speak. The adrenaline that had been holding him together was draining away, leaving him shaky and dizzy. Castellano turned to one of the Secret Service agents. "Get the medic." Then he looked at the FBI agents who'd arrived. "I want this man arrested. Battery, false imprisonment, civil rights violations, abuse of authority. Everything." 2 FBI agents moved toward Fontaine, pulling out handcuffs. Fontaine backed up against his vehicle, his face a mixture of panic and disbelief. "Wait, you can't just—" "I was doing my job. He looked suspicious. I had reasonable cause to—" "Reasonable cause?" Castellano's voice turned ice cold. "What was your reasonable cause? That he's black? That he was driving a nice car in a wealthy neighborhood? That you decided someone who looks like him doesn't belong here?" Fontaine's mouth worked, but nothing came out. One of the FBI agents took Fontaine's arm. "Agent Derek Fontaine, you're under arrest for deprivation of rights under color of law, assault and battery, and false imprisonment. You have the right to remain silent." "This is insane," Fontaine said, his voice rising. "I'm a federal agent. You can't arrest me for doing my job." "Your job isn't to brutalize American citizens," one of the FBI agents said flatly. He pulled Fontaine's arms behind his back and cuffed him, using the same rough motion Fontaine had used on Marcus. "Your job isn't to decide who belongs in this country based on the color of their skin." A paramedic arrived and gently guided Marcus to sit on the curb. She started cleaning the cut on his forehead while checking his pupils for signs of concussion. Senator Castellano stood over them, his phone pressed to his ear. "Isabella, I have him," Castellano said into the phone. "He's safe. We're bringing him to you now." There was a pause. "No, don't cry, sweetheart. Save it for the ceremony. We'll be there in 20 minutes. Marcus heard Isabella's voice through the phone, high and panicked, though he couldn't make out the words. Castellano handed the phone to him. "Marcus!" Isabella's voice cracked. "Oh my God, are you okay? Dad said I stopped you and—" "I'm fine," Marcus said, though his voice shook. I'm okay. I'll be there. I promise. I thought you weren't coming, she whispered. I thought something terrible happened. Something terrible did happen, Marcus said, looking at Fontaine being loaded into the back of an FBI vehicle. But your dad fixed it. Castellano took the phone back. We'll be there soon, sweetheart. Start without us if you have to, but we're coming. He ended the call and looked down at Marcus. Can you stand? Marcus nodded and got to his feet with the paramedics' help. His legs felt weak, but they held him. How did you find me? Marcus asked. Castellano held up his phone, showing a tracking app. Isabella has your location shared with her. When you didn't show up at the venue and she saw you'd stopped moving on Peachtree Road, she called me immediately. His expression hardened. I had Secret Service and FBI here in 8 minutes. If we'd been any later. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Fontaine was in the FBI vehicle now, his face pressed against the window, watching everything fall apart. The tow truck he'd called arrived, saw the federal agents everywhere, and turned around without stopping. Let's get you to your wedding, Castellano said. Marcus arrived at the Historic Academy of Medicine in a Secret Service motorcade at 11:58 a.m., 2 minutes before his wedding was supposed to start. The paramedic had bandaged the cut on his forehead and cleaned the blood from his face, but he still looked like he'd been through hell. His suit was wrinkled and dirty from being slammed against the car. His wrists had dark bruises from the handcuffs, but he was there. Isabella met him at the entrance and threw her arms around him so hard they both almost fell over. She was crying, her makeup running, not caring that her 200 guests were waiting inside. I thought I lost you, she sobbed into his shoulder. I thought you weren't coming. I'm here, Marcus whispered, holding her tight. I'm not going anywhere. Her mother rushed over with makeup wipes and a backup tuxedo they'd brought just in case. Marcus changed in a side room while Senator Castellano made calls, his voice sharp and clipped as he spoke to people in Washington. The wedding started 23 minutes late, but nobody complained. When Marcus walked down the aisle with Isabella, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. But the story didn't end there. Agent Derek Fontaine was fired from ICE within 48 hours. The FBI investigation moved faster than anyone expected because the evidence was overwhelming. 17 witnesses had recorded the entire incident on their phones. The videos showed everything. Fontaine pulling Marcus over without cause, refusing to verify his identity, slamming him against the car, mocking him when he mentioned the senator, and splitting his head open against the vehicle. The footage went viral within hours. By Monday morning, it had 15 million views. The Department of Justice filed federal civil rights charges against Fontaine on Tuesday. He was charged with deprivation of rights under color of law, assault and battery, false imprisonment, and violating the Civil Rights Act of 1964. His lawyer tried to argue he'd been doing his job, but the prosecution tore that defense apart. The evidence showed Fontaine had a pattern. Over his 17-year career, he'd made 412 immigration stops. 397 of them were Black or Latino drivers in expensive cars in wealthy neighborhoods. His own records proved he was racially profiling. Marcus and Isabella filed a civil lawsuit asking for $12 million in damages. Fontaine didn't have that kind of money, but the lawsuit wasn't really about the money. It was about sending a message. The case went to trial 4 months later and took 6 days. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes and came back with a verdict. Guilty on all counts. Fontaine was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $8.4 million in damages, an amount that would follow him for the rest of his life. But Senator Castellano didn't stop there. He used his position as White House Chief of Staff to launch a full review of ICE's traffic stop policies. He brought in the ACLU, civil rights organizations, and independent investigators to examine patterns of racial profiling in immigration enforcement. The review found systemic problems across multiple field offices. Agents were stopping people based on appearance, not evidence. They were targeting certain neighborhoods. They were ignoring constitutional protections. New policies were implemented nationwide. Mandatory body cameras for all ICE agents conducting traffic stops, supervision requirements for roadside immigration checks, a federal hotline for reporting civil rights violations, Agents who violated the new rules faced immediate termination and criminal prosecution. Fontaine became the example, the cautionary tale used in every training session. His mugshot appeared in PowerPoint presentations alongside the words, "This is what happens when you abuse your authority." Marcus and Isabella went on their honeymoon 2 weeks after the wedding, finally able to celebrate without the shadow of what happened hanging over them. They spent 14 days in Italy, away from cameras and reporters and the constant questions about that day on Peachtree Road. When they came back, Marcus returned to his job at Henderson and Brooks, but something had changed. He started taking pro bono civil rights cases, representing people who'd been racially profiled, people who'd been abused by authorities, people who had nowhere else to turn. He couldn't forget what had happened to him, couldn't forget how helpless he'd felt standing there in handcuffs while a racist agent decided his fate. So he made sure it meant something. Derek Fontaine served his full sentence in a federal prison in Pennsylvania. He lost his pension, his benefits, and any chance of working in law enforcement again. When he was released, he was 50 years old with no job prospects and a debt he'd never be able to pay. His name was permanently associated with racism and abuse of power. The wedding photo of Marcus and Isabella hung in Senator Castellano's office in the White House. In it, they're smiling despite everything, holding hands, surrounded by family. And if you look closely at Marcus's forehead, you can still see the small scar from where Fontaine slammed his head against that vehicle. It's a reminder that racism has consequences, and sometimes those consequences are permanent. If this story showed you why we need accountability in law enforcement, share it with someone who needs to see it. And if you want more real stories about justice, consequences, and standing up to abuse of power, subscribe. We're bringing you the truth, one story at a time.